this look okay?
Yes.
My James Spader outfit?
Hey, Mariah, you know what you should take? A little dope. You think that'll be a copyright strike? Is that enough of, like, that's an obscure, like, B-side from an album, though. It's not one of the main tracks.
You didn't sing it. He doesn't either, though, to be fair.
It's not really a sung line. It's like a spoken line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like a kind of gospel revival kind of song where some parts he's like like a preacher.
Well, I had read
we should
that
define
Daltrey...
we should start defining.
This is something from The Who.
We should start defining bands, who these people are, not just assume that everyone is living in our headspace.
Roger Daltrey was the front man for The Who, and before performances he used to listen to a lot of old bluesmen from the American South to prepare his vocals to be more rich and rough and masculine, because in the beginning he didn't really have that. It was more pop and youthful.
Did that help him?
I don't know. He did develop a style that was all his own eventually. So, I mean, everybody is doing something like that. You have inspiration from all over the place.
Can you think of someone...
Robert Plant used to say you need to challenge yourself to try new things all the time as a vocalist.
Can you think of someone who, try as they might, didn't develop a style?
I don't want to put anyone down, though.
But I want you to put someone down, because let's
like
face
a
it,
dog.
right at this point, this is like a roast channel.
Like
we have to
diamond
accept
dogs. I don't know.
If you put someone down like a diamond dog, I think that would be a very extremely fabulous fate.
Yes.
They'd have a beautiful collar that they could probably immediately go to a pawn shop and hawk for like substantial amounts of money.
Or a bear bar.
I don't think bears have any money, so you'd be...
maybe that's what Elton John was singing about in which song?
A G-rated channel.
Which song did Elton John sing about? Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
He sings about diamond-studded collars in this song.
Well, about giving up his diamond-studded collar to go back to the farm, to the haunted old owl in the woods.
Is that what he was giving up? I thought he was giving up being a bottom in exchange for money,
a
daily spending money.
luxurious life. Well, that's what the collar represents, a golden gilded cage.
Like, I guess you call it petty cash. Like, I mean, in his world, that's like
your
daily money.
It's any person who is making their way by sort of being cared for.
Like being a whore.
Well, like being a housewife, but there's nothing wrong with being a housewife. I just said something very problematic, didn't I?
Goods and services, if the goods are your lower intestine. Did I get too medical?
I think at some point you'll have to get medical.
Yeah. I heard, in his case, very famously it got medical, because he was rolled, in the apocryphal story, he was rolled on a gurney into an operating... I don't want to go into it. I think we've gone into it before. I guess the surgeons didn't want to go into it.
If you go into it more than 2 times, I think it becomes something that you are
I thought you were going to say Elton John appears next to you if you go into it. Then, in that case, let's go into it. No. Hands deep.
That thread is kind of taking off. The one where I talked about our humanoid encounter. But I think a lot of people think that it's a troll. Because
the way you said that sounded like a housewife in the 50s saying, like, her casserole's a big hit in the neighborhood.
Well, it is kind of like my casserole. I told a story.
They all think it's my recipe, but it's Betty Crocker's.
It's Art Bell. I just lifted from Art Bell. No, that's not true. This was our own encounter. But because I'm kind of jokey about it, I think people think it's a troll. That's just my personality, especially in text. I get a little silly even if I'm talking about something serious. In fact, the more serious the topic, the sillier I get. So, but it seems to be a popular thread for that forum where threads, I mean, it's a niche topic, so it's not like the threads are thousands of comments long, but it's definitely getting a little traction. People like to talk about ghost stories and aliens. And apparently there seem to be in San Antonio many what they're terming crawler sightings.
Has the San Antonio Express News been on top of this crawler story, or have they just decided to not feature that one, or just not send out reporters to cover it? Or do you feel like the local media doesn't feel like that's important enough to cover?
Isn't the local media, aren't they the ones who covered the big Fiesta story a couple years back when the chupacabra, the mummified chupacabra was thefted from its booth at Fiesta?
But I feel like that story's based in substance, because even if the mummified chupacabra was like a mutant, a deformed, like a coyote with birth defects, it's still something there.
Well, I feel like this is something that people go to the internet to talk about. It's not something they're calling into the local news, because they know the local news would be like, they'd think it was a prank call. They're old media. It's like calling the local news is like calling your neighbor and telling them that you've seen a little man in your yard. Has anybody else seen this?
I promise you the local news feels like if they were to cover a story like this, it would discredit them.
Yes, and
they want to be very reputable news organizations, so they're not going to follow up leads based on alien sightings.
But if it is something that people think they're seeing, and a lot of people are reporting it, at least online, it's a story.
This, like so many other sightings, it's never supported by any evidence. Like, there aren't photos or video footage of these things. You say,
even if there would be now.
You say other San Antonians have seen this, but everyone has a smartphone.
But are we to the point where, first of all, nobody has their phone out when you see something very quickly on the road at night in the dark.
Oh, they do.
Some people do.
You wouldn't believe how quickly someone can get their phone out and snap a shot of a license plate if they feel like someone has committed a moving violation in their disfavor. They can take a picture of that car very quickly, and I could assure you they could take a picture of a small naked man just as quickly as they could a license plate.
Yes, but the emotion behind that is different. When people are taking a picture of a license plate, they're usually angry and they have a thought in their head of getting someone else in trouble.
It's driven by justice.
What we were talking about, I think we agreed that it was about the height of the hood of our Honda Civic, and a lot of other people said, yeah, that's about it. These are small creatures, like humans that have been shrunk.
Okay, but they can't all be exactly the same height. I'm sure there's variation in the height.
Yeah, but we're not all exactly the same height, but we're generally similar, like human beings. There's an idea that we're all kind of within some sort of frame. They're all very short, very tiny, not just short, but tiny, these creatures. And they have sort of a strange way of running and walking. I don't want to say pitter-patter, but that's what it is.
I think Corey Feldman's drug abuse is real. It's something that's actually happening in the world, and therefore it's automatically 1,000 times more interesting than these
would be
these other kinds of stories that aren't really confirmable, so that they can never move beyond the state of being something that may or may not have happened and probably didn't happen. You will never get the evidence necessary in your life, and neither will I, to move them out of this stage.
Well, no.
And for me to become really interesting, they need to get pushed out of that stage, and the only way they can do that is evidence.
Well, there's been a series of documentaries. I don't know. It's 2 documentaries. I don't know if that counts as a series, by Jeremy Corbell, and
enough blow has gone up Corey Feldman's nose for Sonny Bono to ski down and die going into a tree.
I don't specifically know that, but the point is, there's been 2 documentaries by Jeremy Corbell about Skinwalker Ranch and Bob Lazar and Area 51. So there's been some buzz on Amazon and Hulu. In one of the documentaries, the second one the first one, Skinwalker Ranch, he says while sitting around a cozy fire out in the middle of nowhere, sitting around a campfire in the dark.
Who's sitting around a campfire?
Robbie Williams. That's a name from the past.
The guy who sang Millennium?
Yes. He is there, and
Or the guy who was the genie in
I think the co-owner of
The Lion King.
No. The co-owner, he wishes. This is a relevant documentary that a lot of people paid for on Amazon.
So
it's now
he
on
wishes
Hulu.
he'd be enriched by the royalties Kenny Rogers cried over when he wasn't a skeleton.
Indubitably. But and also the co-owner of AboveTopSecret.com, which is kind of a toxic place. So I don't even know if it's worth mentioning. But
Are you looking to get banned?
they don't know what my moniker is.
So you aren't tied to a specific monitor. Unless you try to start promoting the podcast there, then you're fucked.
No,
You're
but
gonna know.
I have no interest in doing that. We don't need that audience. Maybe we do. I don't know. So I think you're the more...
I thought you said you had a no-so rule, and you just broke your own rule.
I know.
You just said so.
Yes, but I get a pass because I don't often do that. But
Does Peter Gabriel get a pass for writing so?
No. So
is the album that In Your Eyes was on. I think Sledgehammer was also on that album.
There's aspects
Why did you look like you were in pain when I said that?
I do. There are things I appreciate Peter Gabriel. I appreciate that what he has done is very impressive. It's just not my cup of tea for some reason.
Well, make me appreciate paranormal subreddits, because it sounds to me like you've been spending a whole lot of time there.
Well, it's a fancy of mine, and we have an interesting family history
I think there's
has called to
absolutely
me.
nothing fancy about the kind of people that go to these sites.
Well, Reddit is different. I think Reddit, no matter what subreddit you're on, it's bringing a higher caliber of contributor.
I think it's my prejudice, but when I think about the kind of people that get I want to say swayed by this kind of issue, resemble
Harry Knowles,
maybe
Billy Bob Thornton.
Do you remember King of the Hill?
Yes.
Those characters.
Any character from King of the Hill. That is the traditional UFO believer in popular
what
culture.
percentage of Above Top Secret's user base looks like they could have been a character on King of the Hill?
Okay, well that's not fair, because I do think
all of them.
Yes, I do feel if you look in. I don't want to get too far into it, but yes, that seems to be the type of character that presents itself on those kinds of forums, but not Reddit.
Thing is with Reddit, with Reddit, a subreddit of that nature to survive has to have a continuous stream of new stories, new encounters.
Well, I feel that
otherwise it dies.
I feel that Reddit's paranormal subreddits have I feel that they're drawing more I don't want to say a younger crowd, but a more common sort of individual, just the anybody kind of person who UFOs and ghosts are not their hobby. Mm-hmm. It's just they have a story and they want to share it because it's something that happened to them that changed the way they felt about life. And maybe it's just one isolated incident, and that's what makes it so interesting, that these are people that unlike me, UFOs are not something that's sort of a preoccupation. It's just something that happened to them, and they don't understand it, and they're trying to find some kind of clarification. So I feel like Reddit draws that, rather than, as opposed to Above Top Secret that attracts the amateur ufologist type that maybe lives in a trailer and eats TV dinners, and that's a very terrible characterization, but maybe not entirely untrue.
But I also know that on a lot of these subreddits,
they're not the lone gunmen, the people posting on these subreddits.
If you have a hot thread and you get a lot of replies and a lot of activity and you get a lot of upvotes, A lot of people really feed off of that attention. So there is possibly the incentive to exaggerate an experience or possibly even fabricate one just to get the attention they expect to get for telling such a story.
Well, what I've seen so far...
I'm not accusing you or anyone else of such an exaggeration.
Well, I'd like to
I'm here to say that the subject of the thread you made is an experience shared by me, and I can confirm that something was seen on that Texas road. It was absolutely not a fabrication.
No, it's not, and I have many other stories probably way more interesting than that one.
But that doesn't mean other people...
But, I mean, they're outrageous.
That doesn't mean other people aren't making shit up.
No, and there have been a lot of people on these subreddits saying, are people making things up? That question has been thrown out there because I think people are self-conscious. They're nervous. They're sharing something that is very private, something that could... There's a feeling of it
the answer
having
is
the
yes.
potential to hurt
Some of them
them.
are.
Yes, but I feel like overwhelmingly the responses to these threads are, I'm a little bit excited because somebody is actually taking what they're saying seriously. It's not like, haha, Melvin, you're taking it, seriously, you idiot. It's a joke. It's more like, you're taking this seriously. Somebody is actually having a serious discussion where interesting ideas are being put forth about what this could possibly be. People do want to discuss it. People want to know what happened and make sense of it. Even if it's just, like Bob Lazar saying, yeah, I saw a tiny person for a moment through a window when I was walking through S4. And yeah, it could have been an alien, but what I think it was a doll that was... a mannequin, a tiny mannequin that was supposed to be in the seat to simulate who might have sat in these seats in the ship. Mm-hmm. Something like that. I mean, just finding and I know that's already outrageous because you're acknowledging that he's talking about a UFO, that they're back engineering. But I mean, that even at that level, he's thinking, what could be the practical explanation for this? What am I seeing? Maybe there are aliens.
About an alien experiment. Also,
even if
sounds
he's acknowledging that there are aliens, he's not acknowledging that he saw one. Even.
Also, incidentally, it sounds exactly like pre-production on a Radiohead music video. Dummies,
but that's also what I'm
seats.
talking about. We're at the stage where anyone could manufacture this kind of footage. So how do you even know? Nobody knows anything anymore. We're just sharing stories and trying to figure out what practically could have happened. Because we know we saw something. Our memories are not perfect unless you have a photographic memory.
It's been long enough that I know that we're not going to get the closure on the issue that maybe we need.
But maybe we will if we go hunting for them.
You need more than I need.
Can we find out what kind of bait they require?
What's in it for me?
Is there some gold we can offer?
What's
Do we
in
have
it for me?
Gold? Closure. I mean, I guess you don't want a good story.
I'm not Captain Ahab, and whatever that creature was is not my white whale. I'm sorry.
But that's actually not... I'm less interested in crawlers than I am some other subjects, but... and then that's what they're terming them, crawlers. That's new to me. It was just looked like a little person.
I'm hoping that that closure was received in this conversation so I don't have to hear about this shit ever again. I fully expect to hear about other paranormal things, but maybe we can
close the book on the crawler. But it seems to be something that is happening currently in San
Antonio. We can throw it off a bridge
and for
the
many
same
years.
way Paul Rubens threw the penguin off of a bridge in Batman
I'm
Returns.
just saying this seems to be something currently happening in San Antonio, and it has been happening for several years. There are more and more accounts coming out, and it's... I think it's interesting. What if there is some sort of colony of these creatures? And then what are they? People are calling them elves, but are they aliens?
Let's put a book note on the wider San Antonio-wide phenomena and come back to it later.
Okay. You're shutting me down. Chupa has left the building.
This says Anderson Cooper is trending on Reddit. Are you worried?
Why?
Don't you? Anytime a celebrity is trending, I think a lot of people, the first thing they think is, oh, something terrible's happened. It's like Alex Trebek was trending earlier on Twitter, and I think collectively people thought, oh, Cancer Man dead. But he hadn't.
Well, in the case of Anderson Cooper, I do think there was something going on with an interview.
Okay, it says
He
Anderson
was
Cooper
interviewing the mayor of Las Vegas.
presses Las Vegas mayor over which, well, I mean, is it a bit morbid that I'm kind of let down? I don't, I mean, I to wish harm on anyone, but just something a little juicier. If someone is trending globally, don't you think there should be a bigger...
What is a juicy trend?
Oh, like someone's lost their career because they had a catastrophic faux pas on air.
So you're here for the drama. You're here to drag.
Well, CNN is entertainment, I think.
Yeah. As again, people don't really take CNN seriously. I go to Reddit for my news. I go to Philip DeFranco. I go to, Joe Rogan. There's so many different outlets online that, I don't know, what did Roger Ebert call it? Like a grand library that has anything you could ever want, but every night it gets, everything gets moved around and graffitied.
But don't you still think you should put some faith in people who are credentialed and have a resume?
I think we're becoming... I think that we've come to a point in our history where... And
whose work is...
People online can be credentialed.
Buttressed by a network of peer-reviewed, equally credentialed individuals. Because if we lose faith in that sort of system, then what do we have? Just a bunch of wackos, like, shouting at each other.
But I think that you do have to have some kind of credibility
you can't
to rise to the top
that,
online now.
The guy behind the alley at the Shamrock knows as much about a news story as a trained journalist.
Are you saying Philip DeFranco is a guy behind an alley at the Shamrock?
Well, I don't know that much about him. I don't really watch that channel, so I'm not going to say anything about him.
But you know that channels like his have a lot of production, a lot of staff.
I'm sure at this point he has a huge team and he can afford to pay a huge
offices and teams, and there's a lot of research that goes into it.
So
he's
at this
taking it
point,
seriously.
it's not just a guy yelling.
No. So I think there is some credibility to be had at this point.
But you're
online,
saying beyond,
but you have to win the credential on your own.
Well, you chose to bring up Philip DeFranco, but you also indicated you were listening to just random people on forums and people with random YouTube channels also.
Well, a lot of interesting news happens on Reddit. People bring... Reddit's highly moderated, too. And they don't let a lot of crap slide.
You have to realize that a lot of those people get their news from traditional news outlets also.
Yes,
so
but...
it's just getting filtered through these people.
I like the filtering, though. I feel like it cuts out a lot of the bullshit and the glitz and the crap that you get with old school media.
So when you saw Alex Trebek was trending, part of you just wasn't like, bring it, what happened?
No.
You die, Trebek.
It sounds like you have an issue.
Mariah, I think when you were in high school, didn't you do traditional tabletop gaming?
Yes, I did. I was
Which games did you play?
Shadowrun and Vampire the Masquerade. I was an incredible nerd.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, Vampire the Masquerade.
I vaguely remember it. It was just a lot of cool kids were doing it. It was a great outlet for creativity and storytelling.
So what did a tabletop game of Vampire the Masquerade...
I went to a very lame high school where the tabletop games were the sport. There was no football or any basketball or anything like that, or cheerleading. It was at lunch. You ate lunch with your teachers, and everybody gathered around a tabletop game, and everybody gathered around the game and cheered them on. That was my high school.
If I can compel you to jog back that very, very long distance in your memory.
There's going to be holes in my shoes. And I did not wear shoes in high school.
What did a game...
I was known for that.
How did a game of Vampire the Masquerade go, generally? A live action
I don't
role-playing?
remember. It was just something silly we did at lunchtime.
Did everyone in the game play a vampire, or could you be a non-vampire?
No, you had to be a vampire.
And you had to pick a specific clan.
Yes, and the entire high school, which was a very small school, it was just a couple hundred kids. The entire high school would try out for these games, and
try out for the games like they were teams?
Yes, and this is how nerdy this high school was. They would all try out for the games when a new one started, and be vetted till you only had about 10 players left, and then people would sort of pick teams and cheer you on at lunchtime. That was how it went. And yeah, I what is the point of this?
I was going to talk about Vampire the Masquerade, but that is really interesting.
My high school?
No.
Playing tabletop games
So
as
this
if they
high
were a team
school
sport?
didn't have teams? They didn't have sports?
No, it was a very small magnet school. And as I said, we ate lunch with our teachers. We were, no one was particularly athletic. We all cosplayed Star Trek and interrupted our class with, tricorder updates. It was just very silly, basic, I guess, what would be the equal of that? I've never seen it, but what was that show on NBC about the nerds?
American Ninja Warrior?
Yes. No. The one where the catchphrase was Bazinga.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I know what I'm talking about too, but I don't remember the name of it. But
so,
it was something akin to that.
So why couldn't you play a human if there were humans in the world of the vampires?
Well, we were using a book. Usually one of the nerdy kids who had a little bit of money would buy the book, and there were a set characters that you had to choose from. There were archetypes, and it was it wasn't a game you made up as well the character so much. You had to go with what they had in the book. It was very, very nerdy.
Yeah. Apparently they made a video game version of this. Well, they made a video game based on the lore, the content, and I suppose the rules of Vampire the Masquerade. Well, I guess a game company licensed the title.
Was it very successful?
I downloaded it recently. I paid for it. It was on...
How much was it?
It was on a website, and it was only a few dollars, and it's a very old game, so I was able to buy it for just a few dollars. I said, why not? I need some interesting diversion right now.
It was a fun game.
It's a really hard time. People are struggling, so I just thought, this looks like I'll be able to enter a really cool LA vampire underworld that will be full of light comedy and will feel like basically I'm in an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'll be walking around talking to people, developing my vampire character, and that's what the game will be, and I'll just play for a little while. Are you
Spike or Angel? Which team?
Well,
you have to answer
to put a very fine point on it, I thought
Boreanaz or Marsters. I never caught on to that.
When I downloaded the game, I thought I would be a character like that, but that's not how it turned out.
How did it turn out?
Well, when you start the game, you can create the kind of character you want, exactly the kind of character you want. It gives you two options. Or you can go through what amounts to basically a personality test where you're asked questions, like moral questions, like ethical questions.
That was in the book as well.
Like, for example... if you're like at a bar and like a fight breaks out or someone gets up in your face, do you get back up in their face and throw it back at them? Or do you try to calm the situation down and get out the back door? And based on your responses to these questions, the game tells you what kind of vampire you are. And that's what I chose. And for each of the questions, I always answered like the person who wanted to de-escalate and wanted to ensure their own survival and just get out of the situation without a scratch, just keep living in the world. And
so were you some kind of politician?
No, this was assigning you a vampire clan. And
well, there are clans that were more apt to that vocation.
But I felt like I made a series of very adult and sensible responses to these moral, dilemmas that they were outlined by these questions.
Of course you did.
At the end of that questioning, the game said, okay, you are a revolting Nosferatu that lives in the shadows and can't be seen by people without them screaming in your face.
Really?
So according to the game, to be a sexy, cool vampire, you have to answer as though...
you have to be an attention whore.
You have to make the sort of choices that would get you on World Star Hip Hop. Like, would you make a choice that could possibly alter your life or end your life because someone got your burger wrong.
Wait.
So if you would do that, then and answer each question that way, basically get in people's face.
Were you just thinking about Mama Margie's and the knife fights over burritos at 3 a.m.?
Yes, that sort of thing.
Very wild place to be at 3 a.m.
If you wouldn't immediately start fronting and get very serious over incredibly non-serious things, if you don't
Trivial.
if you don't do that, then you are a disgusting, revolting Nosferatu. Oh, this is what you are. You're a character from the underworld that can't be seen by other people if you are this kind of person. So how would that translate back into the real world?
Wait, I'm trying to think. I don't remember the clans exactly, except the clan that I was a member of. But I know there's a clan that does favor that. They're proud, but they're more diplomatic. So I can't imagine that you would be the
Malkavian?
Yeah, I was Malkavian. But mostly because I just thought that was funny.
The main Malkavian character in the game is a whore. Well, anyway,
the Malkavian, we interpreted them a bit differently.
So at the onset, because I thought, oh, this is going to be like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I'm going to be a sexy, cool vampire. So at the outset, that hope is dashed. It's no, you're this creature that looks like a Gary Oldman from Bram Stoker's Dracula when he was in the bat state. That's what the character looks like in the game.
I remember.
And in the game, if you go near normal humans, they scream and run away. So this is not
normal humans. Very reasonable.
I wanted to be
day
Lestat, like seducing people, but no, I'm a monster. So I don't start over. I say, okay, this is the dice I rolled, so I'm just going to play the game this way. It's role playing. You go with the role you're assigned. So it gets worse from there. I thought, okay, I didn't think this was going to be like a dark gothic horror game, because I don't usually play those kinds of games because they scare me.
No Castlevania.
I wouldn't give that. I would say more like Resident Evil, like a horror game.
Yeah, I'm not really into it either.
I thought, oh, this is going to be, I keep saying, like Buffy. Like I'm going to be in an episode of Buffy. It's going to be
something a bit more romantic and comedic and, thoughtful, a comment on society.
And the game is set in Los Angeles, and it was released in 2004. So
it will have a hint of California style.
The game was actually released while Buffy was still on the air. So this is like a vintage game. It was 2004. But the Buffy stuff is there. There's definitely the cool late 90s, early 2000s, funny, quippy California kind of vibe. The whole game takes place at night. There literally are no daylight scenes. So
you're vampires.
Yes. And there are characters that sound like a 90s Brad Pitt surfer character. So those kinds of characters pop up, and it's like a stereotype, and it's what you want. It's what I wanted. It's like I'm an Encino Man, but with vampires. So in other words, The Lost Boys, or in other words, Buffy.
Anything from that,
This is really
era.
confusing. But one of the first missions you're assigned is to basically solve a ghost story. One of the powerful vampire characters, who is like a madam at a horror house, essentially says, I have this real estate property that I want to turn over. I want to make some money, but there's a serious haunting going on. It's like a beachfront hotel. So you're a disgusting Nosferatu and you make me sick. So I'm going to deploy you to this seaside hotel and you're going to solve this haunting.
So the trajectory of this game has been inspired by the choice of vampire they've given you.
I don't know that because I've only played it as one vampire. I'd have to play it as a different
But we're
vampire.
assuming,
it might be the exact same.
Taken that turn for that reason.
It might be the exact same missions for all I know. But anyway, she says, okay, to get rid of this ghost so that I can sell this hotel, you need to bring me back a personal effect of the ghost that is in eternal damnation in this hotel. And it's like...
That sounds a little bit like Supernatural.
And it's very scary. The moment I get into the hotel, it's like you're in a horror game. It's not what I wanted. And I'm really scared, and the lights are off in my bedroom, and I'm just trying to play this. And I don't play that many games.
This is why you don't want to remember the abductions. It's too much.
But here's the thing, Mariah. I paid for this. So I'm not going to not play it. So I put myself through this experience I don't want. And
you could just say it was a few dollars. Fuck it.
No, I can't.
Yes, just throw it under the bridge. Say, I made a mistake.
But it feels like a Resident Evil game.
This is like Kenny Rogers.
It's
with
a
his
gothic.
roasters.
It's a
Just let
gothic
it go.
Victorian seaside hotel, and you hear like a music box playing. There's lightning flashing. You fall through the stairs into the laundry room, and you hear laughter, and there are ghosts running around. And there are severed heads of children.
Okay, is the laughter clearly a recording, or have they done it very well? How well is it rendered?
It's done very well.
So it's actually kind of scary.
This game is a game with live voice acting.
This is like Bunny when Garrett Watts, Graveyard Girl, took everybody into there was a controversy on YouTube where Graveyard Girl took the Shane Dawson crew into a haunted toy shop that she knew the owner, and they were allowed to come in after dark. They were given the keys and they were going to stay there for the night, and she was saying she was going to prank everybody. But then Garrett Watts had a little recording of a growl, like an animal growl, on his phone, and he put it on the speakers, and she freaked out and accused him of trying to hurt her or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, Mariah, it was exactly like that.
It's just any realistic sounding noise. This is the problem. In this day and age, you can manufacture anything.
I don't know
so
who
what
any of those
is
people
real?
are, but I'm going to say yes, it was like that.
Were UFO sightings more real in a time when they could not be manufactured to that degree by just anyone?
Okay. But I soldier through this horror episode. I said, what if beyond this, they're just going to have this elaborate haunted house episode, but beyond this, it will be what I want. It will be the lighthearted Buffy vampire game that I want. So I go through this, and it turns out the personal artifact I need is a necklace. And I need to give this to...
Is it a locket? That sounds so gothic.
This story...
Is there a picture inside of a little girl?
No,
with
it doesn't.
Honey blonde hair?
It doesn't go that far, but I will say that every aspect of the haunting feels like it was taken from the most stereotypical. It was sourced from every well-worn horror trope that you can possibly imagine. There was no originality here. So it's like, you feel like you've seen and heard all of this before, but it's in a game form.
You've
so it's
seen
sort of
it all
novel.
before. It's well-worn territory that should not spook you, but the way that they're doing it, it's so realistic that it doesn't matter. You're being spooked.
I get the locket, and I take it back to the madam, who's a Malkavian. I'm supposed to take it back to her so I can unbind the little girl.
You can't trust a Malkavian.
But I end up giving it to a hooker because I think she's going to give me sexual favors. But the hooker then throws the locket into the ocean.
Why did you make that choice?
Because I'm stupid Nosferatu.
Wait, you have to?
No.
This is
I'm saying, but
role
what if
you made?
the Vampire The Masquerade chose correctly? Maybe I am a dumb Nosferatu. Okay, I gave the locket to a hooker because maybe I'm stupid. The hooker...
People tuning in now, this is not a real story. We're talking about
It is real.
A game.
Okay, so the hooker throws the locket into the ocean. She's like crazy.
Wait. Was she
but-
Monica from
no.
the song Monica by Ray Davies?
I don't know. But the...
No one will get
That's
that.
absolute insane nonsense. So I give the locket to a hooker vampire who throws the locket into the ocean maniacally, and the game tells me... So she throws the locket into the ocean, and then the game tells me, you have damned the little girl to eternal torment by the serial killer ghost because of your dumb choice. Because I was trying to get laid. So I have to live with that, and I keep playing the game. And
I know you've taken this to heart, even though it's a game.
then the
because that's your
game sends
personality.
me to another Hollywood Hills house, and it's another horror episode. And I go through that, and then beyond that, it sends me to Hollywood, and there's another horror episode in a graveyard. And at that point, I really stop playing the game because it's not what I wanted it to be. It's not enough Buffy, and it's too much Resident Evil. So it was very well done, and I might go back to it and actually try to play the game differently as a sexy vampire.
But the game, the way we played the game, it was just an excuse to make up some sort of comedy skit. It was always something ridiculous. And that was also something highly praised at that high school. Cleverness, quips, skits. Everybody did skits. This was the International School of the Americas, and it was a long time ago. And you know, it was nerdy in the sense that it was like people who wanted to try out for SNL in a way.
Why did the game keep insulting its user Like, it literally said I'm an idiot. Because I gave the locket to a hooker. I mean, on top of suffering the consequences of doing that, do I have to be called an idiot by the game? Was that necessary?
I don't know, Shannon. Maybe they'll respond. Maybe they'll hear
What would
this.
you have done in that situation?
I don't think I'd be playing the game.
So
I'd be reading Reddit, which is what I've been doing.
If you'd gotten to the seaside manor, would it be too scary for you to keep going?
I don't know. Sometimes I like things that are scary, and sometimes I don't. It's just depends on how well it's done.
Oh, and they're releasing a big sequel to this game, which is 16 years later. This was released in 2014, but it's called Vampire The Masquerade Bloodlines, and Vampire The Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is coming out soon, and this is not an advertisement for either one. This is just my life.
What else has been going on in your life?
Ending this podcast right now.